Are you curious about what yoga looks like off the mat, or keen to hear how yogis all around the world live? This show will let you in on the secret that there's no such thing as a perfect yogi. Welcome to the Plant-Powered Yoga Podcast. Please welcome your host, yoga teacher, coffee lover, vegan, and known as the Plant-Powered Yogi, Jess Ivers. Hello yogis, and welcome to the final episode of season 2 of the Plant-Powered Yoga Podcast. In this episode, I interview Rhianna Knight from Team Timbuktu. They're an activewear company that make really ethical yoga wear, activewear, all made out of recycled plastic bottles. And it was really interesting to go into that process with Rhianna and find out how exactly you turn recycled plastics into activewear. So we go into that a little bit. We talk about why Rhianna decided to start her business and where it's taken her, and obviously touching on a little bit of how she found lockdown in Melbourne last year and being a small business owner, how that affected things. But it was really great to meet Rhianna and have a chat with her as a customer as well, and learn a little bit more about the business. So hope you enjoy this chat with her, and I'll see you at the end. All right, welcome to another episode of the Plant-Powered Yoga Podcast. Joining me today is Rhianna Knight from Melbourne, owner, founder, extraordinaire of Team Timbuktu. How are you today?
Really well, thanks. Thanks so much for having me here, Jess.
My pleasure. Now, Team Timbuktu, it's I feel like if you hadn't heard of it before and you say those words, it's like, what is that? Like, that it's an activewear fashion brand making all sustainable products, which is pretty cool. Where did the name come about of that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question, and one I definitely get asked quite a bit. The brand was originally called Mr. Timbuktu, which makes even less sense. We right now only create women's wear, so the fact that we had Mr. we quickly changed that. But Timbuktu came from the idea of, it sounds like a faraway place. You don't quite know where it is, but it's an adventure to get there. And as cliche as it is, it's all about the journey rather than the destination. After starting the brand, I actually discovered it is an actual place. It's in Mali in Western Africa. But beforehand, I just thought it was a made up fictional town in the middle of nowhere. And I love like the feeling of adventure that you get from the name.
Maybe that's just us as Australians, but like when we're like, oh, it's out in Whoop Whoop, like that's not 100%. A real place. So maybe it's a thing that's like, oh, Timbuktu, that can't be a real place.
Absolutely.
Journey and destination and whatnot, you've been living through a lockdown the last little while, and you're finally free, so to speak. How has the business been going over the last couple of months with obviously some extra challenges with COVID?
Yeah, so I'll just say for the record, 9 months of lockdown. It's been a roller coaster year. I was looking at my notes from I think they're from probably about in March. In March, I was originally meant to fly over to China, Taiwan, India, visit all my factories. And then I was like, oh, hang on, can't go anymore. This whole like pandemic thing is happening, or even it probably wasn't a pandemic back then, but I was like, okay, so I guess I should have a plan for the next 2 or 3 months. We'll make some content of yoga at home, and we'll focus less on hiking, and we'll just do a few things, and then the whole thing will blow over and be totally back to normal by June. Obviously didn't happen.
Everyone thought that, being like, oh, it's just it'll be nothing, and I remember when people first started talking about it, I'm like, oh, this will just, things will be back to normal soon. Yeah.
I was meant to be in China in the middle of March, like 3 days before my flight left, it was cancelled on me. And up until that point, I was so determined to go, because it's like, I go visit my factories every year. I need to see them. Like, we can go and do some cool product development and all the things. And my parents are like, you can't go. I'm like, I'm an adult. I can do what I want.
Yeah.
And then the airlines like cancelled the flight. I was like, oh, maybe this is serious. So then reality check then. Obviously, a lot has changed since then. Very thankful that we are predominantly an online business, and we sell comfy clothes. So we have been very lucky, definitely heavily affected, huge delays with supply chain, very worried that we were thinking that the warehouse would have to shut if like all e-commerce would shut down in Melbourne with the lockdown. Thankfully, that didn't happen and we could still operate. But a wild year in short summary.
For lack of any other better term, that's one way to sum it up, I think.
Yeah.
And yeah, you touched on then about going and visiting the factories of where all your clothes are made, and you're obviously a very sustainable brand. We'll touch on a few other things in a moment, but that's obviously something, I guess, when it comes to a sustainable brand, and there's even the campaign around who made my clothes and whatnot. So how do you go about making clothes in an ethical way? I guess it just seems, even though there's more and more brands doing it now, just there's so much fashion and there's so much wastage, I guess, in that industry. How do you go about making sure that everything's done the way that you would like it to?
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's super complex fashion supply chains, because you have like your raw material, be that cotton or oil if you're using conventional polyester, through to like the trims and the buttons, and who's making the yarn and the fabric, and then the garments, and then the finishes. And there's just so many tiny little moving parts that you can kind of understand why brands don't understand their supply chain and don't know where their clothes are made. On the other hand, that's complete madness, and you have no idea like what kind of situation your clothes are made in. So like, frankly, I would never do that. I guess I was lucky because I've always worked in fashion. So studied fashion, worked for a snowboarding company. I managed all of their design and production. So I was really fortunate in that role that I could go overseas to meet makers. I was responsible from the initial like sketch and drawing and creative idea right through to essentially shop floor delivery. So that involved like sampling and grading and picking trims and pattern design and fabrics, like learning about the complexities. And just, it was such a the role had such a wide scope of responsibilities, which I'm really grateful for working for a small business. But I guess that exposed me to a lot of things. It was a steep learning curve. So then when I decided to start my own brand, I had a lot of knowledge already working directly with offshore suppliers, creating a product from scratch, knowing what certifications to look out for in terms of not only fabrics, but then also how the factories operate. Ideally, you'd go into a factory and say, you need to have this particular certification, but at the same time, there's a whole bunch of different ones. And as a very, very, very small business, your order is just so small that you can't demand that they go and get certified for a particular certification, especially if they already have another one. So for example, there's one WRAP, Worldwide Responsible Apparel Production. And then there's another one, BSCI, that's Business Social Compliance Initiative. So they measure mostly similar things. So you get a report on like how many hours are worked by employees, ensuring there's no underage workers, minimum wage, all those kind of things. I think I've gone off on a bit of a tangent there, but
No, not at all.
essentially, like, what to look out for. So like, I guess before I work with a factory, I always go over and visit them. So you've sampled with them before, so you're getting the right product quality, but then also you're building the relationship with the manufacturer. So you go and meet them in person. I speak a good 50 words of terrible Mandarin. So I go and like hang out with them in like their offices, and then also at their factories. I eat lunch with them, and I guess build the relationship from there. Trying to compensate that our orders are so small. We are growing, but they're still just tiny. And so then from being in person, you can learn so much versus via Skype, I guess, or via Skype, because you get to actually be on the factory floor where people are sewing. Because obviously it's so easy to just say, oh yeah, like our factory is great, don't worry about it, it's good. And if you didn't know to ask for the particular certifications, or if you didn't go and do factory visits or a whole bunch of other things, then you just wouldn't know. So then I guess my background made that transition a whole lot easier. Yeah. What was the original question there?
No, that's incredible, that I don't think it is such a, it's, you know, speaking about this in like sort of veganism sometimes as well, like there's a bit of a cognitive dissonance, I guess, with the clothes that you wear and how it actually gets to the store and how it gets to be on hanging on a rack, and how it got made. Like that whole process is just, I don't think a lot of people know about it. So it's really fascinating to hear that you see how it is, and you've used your experience in the fashion industry to then try and create something a little more, a little better for the planet. Because I think you might know this better than I do, but I think fashion waste is one of the biggest contributors to global pollution, and in terms of the dyes that are used and things like that. So I can imagine it would be a bit of an eye-opener as well, maybe seeing other ways that things are done in with other brands and whatnot.
Yeah, it has overall like a pretty dirty history. Like it has devastating impact upon upon the people within the supply chain, like the dyes that are used, the conditions that unfortunately a lot of factories do operate under. A random stat, like the CO2 that's created by the fashion industry is more pre-COVID is more than all international flights and maritime shipping worldwide per year. Like you think airlines are a dirty business, and it's like fashion is worse than that. But I guess, there is that dissonance between the products that you wear and how on earth they actually got created. Like I think there was a bit of a movement away from fast food maybe 10 years ago or so, and it's like, oh, actually, like what's inside this burger or processed food or whatever it is. And then I guess now we're having that same thing within fashion, which is why the Fashion Revolution campaign of Who Made My Clothes is incredible. It's creating transparency and education about the topics, but hopefully in a way that is educational, digestible, and easier and more enjoyable to understand for the everyday consumer, because I guess we've kind of grown out of touch of our knowledge of fabrics and mending and making. Perhaps 50 years ago, it might have been a very different experience as we're all growing up, but most people don't learn anything at all about fabrics or fashion now. So they can't tell you what a synthetic fabric is or what it's made from. So most people don't realize like they're wearing polyester, which is made from oil. And so then when you explain that, it's like, that's awful. Like I had no idea. But like 60% of fabrics that are made from polyester, and people don't know the damage that has. So, but then I guess, how do you communicate that to people in a way that's not just, hey, you're doing a terrible thing? It's like, okay, so this wasn't the best, but you can fix it by doing like this. And of course, that isn't to say go and throw out everything you own and then go and buy better stuff. It's as you need to try and be a more responsible and sustainable consumer.
Yeah, that's a great message, because I think it can be very overwhelming on where to start and what to do. But yeah, I think that's a nice little message to say, just start small and go from there, which I guess is kind of what you did in a way. Started small. You started with what's the word I'm thinking of? Crowdfunding campaign. How did you decide you wanted to start a ethical activewear or fashion business, and how did the crowdfunding campaign come about?
So I was hiking in Patagonia a couple of years ago, backpacking all throughout South America. Spent most of the trip at altitude, just doing these overnight hikes and multi-day hikes, like up volcanoes and in canyons and like glaciers, and it was like phenomenal and so beautiful and life-changing. And I was just wearing these clothes that I hated. Like I felt so ugly in them, and I feel like typically I'm not a particularly vain person. I hate having my photo taken, but I was at these beautiful places and landscapes, and it's like, it's probably going to be a very long time before I come back, so I want a selfie here. But I'm also like, I feel self-conscious because of the clothing that I'm wearing. Like, it's just so ugly. Like, I know it's technical, it's sweat wicking, it's waterproof, it's like got all this like good functional stuff in it, but I just couldn't get over the style element.
I'm just thinking back to when I went to Borneo probably like 5 or 6 years ago now, and it's like all the clothes, because it was like, yeah, rainforest and you needed layers, and I'm just like, everything was, I would never wear that apart from what I was wearing, like apart from where I was.
And everyone's got that story, but I guess it's just something that you accept until there's a better option.
Yeah.
And so when I came back from that trip, or even actually before, I remember being in a particular city and I was like mapping out my plans and like, what can I do? What can I create? So I guess I already had these relationships with some mills and manufacturers. So it was like, cool, I'll start sampling a product, and then just sort the rest out from there. I obviously knew a lot about product development and sustainability, but I knew nothing about finances and marketing. So I guess I was just having coffee meetings with people and being like, how do you start? Like, what do you do? And I met someone who'd just run a crowdfunding campaign. They were doing some cycling product, and they said, you should do a crowdfunding campaign. I'm like, I don't even know what that is, but sure, I'll Google it. Googled it, listened to a whole lot of podcasts, did a whole bunch of research on it. And I'm like, this is great. Like, it's essentially pre-sales, because I don't have any money. Like, I'm mid-20s, I rent, I just have an average paying job. I don't have like heaps of savings, probably didn't have anything in savings. Like, I'd just been to South America. And so I
classic millennial. I mean, that says me, who's in exactly the same boat.
You want experiences, like,
exactly
things. But so I ran a crowdfunding campaign, which was phenomenal, not only for the pre-sales of product, but also for brand awareness and building community, which I had no idea that I needed, and now I'm so grateful to have created that. And also validating the product. It's like, this might be a good idea, but is anyone actually going to pay for it? Or maybe there are other people in the market that I just don't know about. So yeah, that was a great experience. And then ended up launching in June 2018 with a collection of raincoats and activewear, and slowly but surely expanding from there. So our raincoats, we launched with a 48% recycled fabric, which this year we've then improved that up to 100% recycled fabric, which is really exciting.
Wow.
So there's about 31.2 bottles recycled in every single jacket, which, like, when you put the numbers to it, it's like, oh wow, like, that's a lot. And then our activewear is 75% recycled. So I guess behind the collections, it's like everything will always be sustainably and ethically made. For me, that just makes sense. Like, I just can't imagine doing it any other way, because if I'm trying to encourage people to get outdoors or be active or move their bodies, like, it seems counterintuitive if you're like, hey, go take a hike outside, but then also like the fabric that you're wearing has a direct negative impact on the outside. And then in terms of like the factories and ethics, it's like, why would I go and take advantage of someone else just because they live in a different country to me? Like, everyone should have, at the bare minimum, like basic human rights, preferably more. So it was just like common sense. It's like, cool, I'll go and do all of these things. So I guess that's how we got started.
Yeah. Oh, it's great. And I love that you started out with the raincoats. I think we were saying before we started recording, I was like trying to think where I first saw Team Timbuktu pop up, but I remember seeing the raincoats as one of the first things, and I was like, what a cool idea. And then obviously branching into some activewear, and I love that idea of having something to wear when you want to be active, when you want to be outdoors, when you want to be, getting your nature fix, as a yogi, just like, running around in barefoot in the forest. But yeah, you can, I guess, feel proud about what you're wearing, and I guess that's probably what goes back to what you were thinking when you're in Patagonia. And just feeling,
like, it's just, I don't think there ever needs to be a situation where you're creating product that compromises on style or sustainability. Like, they're not exclusive of each other. It just, guess I hadn't seen it done within the particular category before. Sustainability obviously is becoming more popular and mainstream, and it's always evolving, which is great as it needs to. But I guess especially 3-4 years ago, it definitely wasn't as mainstream as it is now.
It's interesting, I guess, like you've probably seen that space grow as well in bigger brands. And is that, do you see when a bigger brand jumps on board with trying to make something a bit more sustainable, like do you kind of see that as not as competition necessarily, but I guess as a way being like, hey, it's awesome that they're now starting to embrace this. And, like I sometimes find that happens with, you'll see smaller brands start things, and I guess when the bigger brands want to start to copy it, then but at this time it's they're not just copying a design, they're copying hopefully something that's going to reduce their impact overall.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I guess if I saw a direct copy of a particular print design, I would be so mad and there would be legal action. But
yes.
if you're incorporating sustainability into your supply chain and business, like, I couldn't be more excited about that, because that's where the world needs to go. Like, it needs to happen, especially for the larger players, because they hold so much power. Like, if I go to a factory and I'm like, hey, I want to use recycled fabric, they might be like, you're not going to order very much. It's not worth our time.
Yeah.
Versus if someone from a super, super large brand says, I'm going to order 1 million meters of this, or yards, or just ridiculous numbers, they'll pay attention and they'll be like, yeah, sure, we can figure out how to source that or how to create that for you. So then when the larger industry players are sourcing more sustainable fabrics, it becomes easier for the smaller brands to source. The prices become better as well. It's like you no longer have to pay a surcharge because you are using sustainable fabrics. And it's just better for everyone involved, like the people and the planet and the business and the end consumer, and just what needs to happen. Like, I guess everything happens slowly, but it's great to see that some of the larger brands are adopting it. I guess a lot of the brands, they adopt it as in here's 1% or maybe 10% of our collection. It's like, this is the mini collection that's sustainable, and it's like, kind of need to carry that across to the whole range. But baby steps, like prove that your customers are happy with it, that they like hemp or recycled polyester or whatever it is, and then transition that out. I guess especially for the larger brands, they have much longer lead times. Like, they might be buying fabric 2 years out or so. So then that might have a flow on it. That will have a flow on effect if they're like, cool, we want to change 50% of our line to be sustainable, but then we might not actually be able to action that till 2023, for example.
Now, firstly, just love that your website is very diverse in the bodies that are on there, because I think that's something as a yoga teacher, there's no one size fits all like yogi, and love the diversity that comes with your range, so that people can actually see what the clothes are going to look like on different shapes and bodies. But how do you come up with the designs for your clothes? Like, there's obviously a reasonable minimalistic view to that, but obviously the raincoats are the funky addition. Do you design all those yourself, or do you get assistance anywhere along the way?
So I do all print design. I guess when we launched, we actually did print everything. So print leggings, print crop tops, print raincoats, and we've since matured a little bit within our palette and range. So it's like, people actually love black leggings. Like, you need to offer them. And then you can also offer the fun things too, but then finding out, I guess, the commercial balance in between the print and the plain colors and the exact range assortment and sizing and all those kind of things. But currently I do all design and print production, but next year we have a super exciting collaboration with an artist that it won't be around till May, but I'm very excited to announce that when that will happen. Stay tuned for that.
Very exciting. Love that. But I can't remember where I was reading, but maybe it was something about in terms of like minimalist pieces and whatnot, in terms of buying products that you're like, okay, I want this to last, and if I'm gonna spend a fair chunk of money on a pair of leggings, I want them to be good quality, I want them to last. And I guess that thing as well of like, if they're a more minimalist style of like a block color or something, like, I don't know if you see it that way, that you're like, okay, well, this is something that like it's not going to go out of fashion. Yeah, black leggings are never going to, thank goodness, hopefully they never do go out of fashion. So is it more, as well, that you want to sort of have something that's a bit of a staple, so to speak?
It's a bit of a balance. So for myself personally, I'm wearing a printed dress right now, but typically I wear plainer, neutral colors because that's my personal style and that's how I like to style my outfits and my wardrobe. So it's just easy to throw things together, versus I know a lot of people out there, they love prints and they're happy for maximalism, and it's just like print on clash on clash, and it's amazing and they look incredible. But I guess everyone has their own personal style, so it's a balance in between. You definitely can get more longevity out of some more muted pieces, I guess, that it's like they're easy for layering. Like I guess some colors are particularly more popular each year, but a particular blue or green, like you probably can wear that for the next at least 5 years and layer with a whole bunch of things. But then also, I guess with the prints, like fashion's there to, it's a form of self-expression. So it's there to make you feel good or however you want to feel. So like I guess with Team Timbuktu, I want the wearers of clothing to feel good, not just because they look great in inverted commas, but because they're like feeling supported, or they feel like they can go and do, I don't know, a yoga or a 5-kilometer hike, or a yoga is not a sentence. I've been in lockdown too long.
No, it's all right. I've heard this. Some people are just like, I don't know how to speak anymore. Like,
I do yoga too. I've just ran out of words. But like I want them to feel good and that the body is capable, I guess, of whatever you want to do. Like I don't care what it is. You can go rock climbing. You can just like walk your dog around the park. Like you do you entirely. But the feeling that you're like F yes, I can do this. Like I'm strong, I'm great, I'm confident, I'm feeling good. Like I've got pockets to put my phone in. So if my phone's not in my hand the whole time and just hassling me, like it's got all the functional bits sorted. You can't go back as soon as you have
pockets. As soon as you have pockets inside. It's like finding like the perfect dress, but it doesn't have pockets. You're like, no. And this is just
one I'm wearing today has pockets on both sides, and it's like, this is groundbreaking. I was saying to my partner actually just yesterday, I'm like, oh, I'm going for a walk, but I don't have any pockets. So I'm not going to take my keys with me. And he's like, just like, what do you mean you don't have pockets? And I'm like, I'm wearing women's clothing. There are never pockets. Never.
I didn't realize how much, I don't want to be like, it's a sexist issue, but it is, like, in terms of like men's clothing and how many pockets they get, like, and they never need to put anything. And tell you what's frustrating, this is me going off on a tangent now, is when you go out and you decide to take a bag and then your partner, your boyfriend, whoever you're with is just like, oh, can I just put these in your bag? You're like, no, you have a jacket and pants and a shirt that all has pockets. Like, excuse me, I will carry my own things.
Yeah, typically I feel like this is a made up number, but I feel like men have 3 to 7 pockets on them at any one time, versus 100%. Women maybe 1 or 2, but probably none. Yeah. Hence the need for a bag.
Exactly. Or hence the need now for tights with pockets. So in terms of functionality, like I think what you were saying before I went off on my tangent, it's got everything you need.
Now we're in just a sales pitch, so come on, buy one now. A rain jacket, actually, that has 4 pockets. So we've got 2 zippered ones on the front, and then you've got like 2 secret ones, like I don't know how to describe this on a podcast, but the pocket bag in the jacket is sewn in a way that you've actually got 2 like fake, or not fake, but hidden pockets inside the jacket. So then you can just like stuff heaps of things inside all 4 of your pockets. And then if you're wearing leggings, you've got another 2 pockets. So you got 6.
Literally, like, just, just going to wear that for the rest of my life. Great for when we can finally travel again, like in terms of when you're trying to like save on weight and you're just like, I just got to put everything in my pockets. Again, another disadvantage when women travel, you got to be like, all right, I've got to wear something with pockets because 100% my bag is going to be overweight. So I'm going to have to stuff some things in. So, you know, look at you. Now, quickly before we wrap up, in terms of your products being recycled, I don't know if you can quickly explain this, but one, how do you recycle a plastic bottle into leggings? And looking after the clothes or wearing them, you know, I guess that might be a concern from some people, is like, oh, am I wearing something that's, you know, am I going to just like pop on my leggings one day and a bottle lid's going to pop out or something? Because I also love that you have for sale on your website the guppy bags, which you can wash your clothes in. And so I guess in terms of like education around that is something you do really well. But yeah, how do you recycle a bottle into a pair of pants?
It's a very common question. So we're predominantly online, but occasionally we do markets, and people, like, we've got this big sign about talking how you do it, and then people are like, can I just touch the legging? And it's like, I don't care who you are. Yeah, like, come touch the legging. Don't care if you hate it or you're not interested. Just like come and feel what it feels like, because it feels like regular fabric. After all the processing, it's just like it's a fabric. It's the same as what you'd expect for any other particular item of clothing, because I guess you're not thinking, oh, that t-shirt is made of oil, it's going to feel like oil. Exactly. It's just that disconnect. But so for the plastic recycling, I'll just work back a little bit. So you've got the designer, and then you've got the plastic recycler, then your fabric mill, then your garment manufacturer. So I guess that's the steps within the supply chain. But the plastic recycler, they'll collect the plastic bottles, take off the lids and the labels, sort them by colors, because you can only recycle all the like clear ones together, and then the green ones in their own separate little piles, and then sterilize, chop or melt down into like cornflake kind of size pieces, and then do the same process again down to like a rice bubble kind of size, extrude kind of through like a shower head. Like, imagine you've got this hot melty spaghetti going through a shower head, and from there you like make a yarn into a fabric, and then cut and sew into a regular garment. But hopefully that explains it. It's a bit of a strange process, but then so is transforming oil into a fabric.
I was just about to say, I was like, I don't know how you'd make oil into a t-shirt or something. So that actually
like
sounds,
it's liquid.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So then, like, the end fabric, it's not what you'd expect. It's soft. It's breathable. It's got all the good elements that you want in it. It just means that we're using up all the plastic waste that we have, that obviously there's far too much. And we're also reducing the dependence on oil, because the fashion industry uses a lot of that. So then I guess people think like, oh, is it going to be scratchy or sweaty or just like weird and stiff? It's like, no, it's none of that. But then on the flip side and taking back a step, in terms of fabrics, so definitely like microfiber pollution is a real issue. It's something that happens with all synthetic fibers. So with Fabric History 101 lesson, you've got natural and synthetic fibers. So your natural fibers are like cotton, wool, hemp, and silk. They're fantastic for everyday use, so like non-performance things. So whilst you definitely can create organic cotton leggings, they're probably better for a lower impact workout or activity. So when you're not really sweaty, they're probably perhaps slightly looser fitting, so there's not the compression, and you just wear them all day just around, I guess, versus
not as arduous as like going from your bed to the couch to watch Netflix or something. That's what they're perfect for.
Versus then you've got your synthetic fabrics, such as like a polyester or acrylic or a spandex, or those kind of things that are man-made, not from things that you can grow in the ground like cotton or silk or etc. And so they're conventionally created from oil versus I guess newer fibers like a recycled polyester. You can create that from a recycled plastic bottle, so you're reducing your impact there. And then the synthetic fibers, they're better for higher performance activities, so you need those fabrics for like sweat wicking or waterproofing or like compression or just high impact things like running or when it's raining or just those kind of activities, or like to create elastic so the pants don't fall down. That's all synthetics. But the problem is when you wash synthetics, then microfibers are released into waterways in your washing machine, then they go out to the ocean, and then it's a problem with the fish and etc. Bad. So it's not just an issue affecting a couple of brands, it's every single brand that creates any product that is washed. It is a problem. So there's a couple of interim solutions. There's one called Coraball, and then there's one that we stock called Guppy Friend bags. So they're like a really big wash bag that you can pop all of your synthetic items into the bag, and then just pop it in the washing machine and wash as normal. So then it means there's less like friction on the fiber in the washing machine, so it doesn't damage the fiber as much. So it lasts longer, and then also it means less microfibers are released, and then the bag catches the microfibers, so then you can empty that at the end. So then the garments last longer, you're reducing the microfiber pollution, and I guess it's a good meantime alternative until science catches up and figures how on earth do we create synthetic fibers without the microfiber pollution.
Fingers crossed that is soon. Oh, we hope. But
complex though.
I know. Oh golly. I mean, and you've got the fashion head, and my head's spinning around that. So I feel like if even you don't have the answer, then I certainly don't. But well, thank you for all that you do in trying to make the world, I guess, a bit of a better place through fun and fashionable activewear. I mean, I could think of far worse things to be doing. But thank you very much for joining me. Where can people find you? Obviously, you are predominantly online. Hopefully, you can start getting out to some markets and whatnot again soon. But yeah, where can people find you?
So it's just Team Timbuktu on everything. TeamTimbuktu.com for website, Team Timbuktu on Instagram and Facebook. And just to spell that out, because some people do mark it up, that's TIMBUKTU. I've had some strange pronunciations of it. I thought it was quite phonetic, like in the pronunciation, but not always, it seems. But yeah, we'd love to see you over on Instagram. Slide into our DM, say hi.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for joining me today. And yeah, thank you for all of your amazing work. And yeah, can't wait to chuck on another pair of your leggings soon and get outside and go see some stuff in Melbourne.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
It was so great to chat to Rihanna and find out more about the ins and outs of Team Timbuktu, and talking about how, you turn plastic bottles into activewear, and how she came up with all of the amazing concepts for her brand. And of course, talking about the all-important aspect of pockets in women's clothing. So that was a real game changer for me, discovering Rihanna's clothes. This is the final episode for this season, so thank you for tuning in to another season. We'll be back for season 3, just going to take a little break and get myself settled back in my new home again, and have some exciting people that I've already interviewed for the next season. Again, trying to have a little theme around a bit more of a trauma-informed approach to the next season. And so, looking forward to chatting more about that and chatting with some people who are leaders in that space. This podcast was recorded on the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. I'd like to use this opportunity to pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Thanks again for listening to the Plant Powered Yoga podcast. For more information, visit plantpoweredyoga.com or visit the show notes below. I'd love it if you could rate, review, or even share this podcast with a friend. Thanks so much for helping create a kinder world, and see you next time.